I told her, I said, you know what? If I get a job back in Kansas City, I'll go back to Kansas City. I love Kansas City. I love the people. I knew that wasn't, being the oldest son in an Italian family, nobody left.
Right.
And, and that was really hard on my dad, my mom. But, I told him, I said, look, I'm going to make you proud. And we'll get back and we'll visit. And, and it was a good thing my brother had left eventually. And, but the point being, I told my wife, I said, I love Kansas City. I love the people back there. Most friendly place, great town. And it's I don't want people finding out how good this city is, in essence, compared to a lot of cities. And so when we came back, and that's I interviewed at about 4 or 5 different places. And luckily, the timing, I hit at Shawnee Mission West and talked to Dick Purdy, and again, another guy that changed the course of my life, and Reese Pollard, guys who took a chance on Tony Severino. And here I am, a kid from Cleveland. I was different. I talked a little bit different than the people out here, and at that time it was just different. And they took a chance on me, and that's how it all started. But I remember driving down State Line and going by Rockhurst and seeing all boys Jesuit school. And that's, like I said, when I didn't know anything about it. And I told my wife, if we have sons, I want them to go to school there. They're going to go to school there. And so I coached for Dick for 6 years and became the head baseball coach there, started the baseball program, turned down a job at Baker in between, and I had a couple other interviews, but then the Northwest job opened up, and I took that job and coached football and baseball. But then I called Al Davis at Rockhurst to schedule a game as soon as I took over that job at Northwest. And I don't think Al ever forgot that, because I said, Coach, I want to build this program up, be as good as Rockhurst. And I want to play you whenever you get an opening. I never shied away from anybody. And that's how it all began. And then in 1981, we won the state championship at Northwest, and we're there for 3 years in a row in the state finals. And Jerry Culver, I say he resigns. And I'll never forget, Harold Wamscon's calling me at 7:30 in the morning. And he said, Tony, you're going to apply for that job, aren't you? I go, if they want me, I'm going. And I called Al Davis that day. And I said, Coach, he said, Tony, I've been waiting on your call. I said, Coach, I just saw in the paper this morning. And he said, be over here at 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm going to tell you my interview. He said, you be over here at 3:30 in the afternoon, and Mike Van Kiersblik meets me at the door. I always tell Mike he's the first guy I ever met at Rockhurst. He takes me to Coach Davis's office. Coach Davis grabs my arm, takes me up to Father Hunthausen, walks me in the office, and he said, Father, this is our new football coach. Do whatever you have to do to hire him. And he leaves. How many people get interviewed like that anymore?
Not many.
That was, every now you got to go in front of boards. You got to go, you got to go through hoops, and they check in your. But that literally was my interview with Al. Like I said, I played against Rockhurst, and he knew me and knew my background. But that was he just grabbed my arm. We didn't even talk for 10 minutes. I said, Coach, there's about 3 things I'd like to have before I come over here. But you had to know Al Davis. You didn't. Not too many people were able to say no to Al.
So you had success early, and you won a state championship already as you're going to Rockhurst. How did you develop what would be your football philosophy?
Well, a lot of it has to do with you take the best and the worst of all the coaches you played for, all the people you've met, all the people you listen to, and then as you play them, you take philosophies. Yeah, I really like that scheme. I like what he did there, and Vince Gibson was a great organizer. I didn't think he was the greatest everyday coach. I mean, game coach. Certain guys are great game coaches. Certain guys are great practice coaches. Certain guys are great organizers. You know, I read a lot of books. The guys, John Wooden, I admired the things he had to say about coaching. Mike Krzyzewski, you listen to me talk about basketball coaches. I read tons of, Lou Holtz, different books and people you've met. I tell people, the people that I have been so fortunate to have in my office, the Lou Holtz and the Barry Switzers and the Joe Paternos and you name them. And I think one of the greatest was that I got to drive with John Wooden, sit in the back seat of a limo. I was supposed to pick him up at the airport. He was going to talk at a clinic here. And I missed him coming. He got off the plane early, and we ended up the limo driver. I had the driver. We got off at the same time he did at the hotel, and I went up to him and said, Coach Wooden, I am so sorry. I said, you got off early. And so I was part of a speech that night. Well, the great thing was about a year later, I'm speaking at a clinic in St. Louis, and John Wooden's on the clinic because he's the main speaker. I'm supposed to speak at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. John was the keynote guy at 9. His secretary calls me up in my hotel room, and he said, Coach Wood like to trade spots with you because he's got to get back on a plane and get back to UCLA to get back to California. And I go, there's going to be a lot of disappointed people when Tony Severino walks in and John Wooden's not there. Well, John, I said, I'll be honored, but, so I mean, so I take it, I walk out there, there's like 500 people. I think John talked about 9 who were there to hear me.
That's funny. But you had consistent success. You had one losing team at Rockhurst, and also your championship teams were kind of spaced out as well. So you were always excelling. As you went along, did you find it difficult to, you set a standard like that? I mean, that's difficult to live up to.
Well, my philosophy had always been you play the best. I think one year we traveled over 4 or 5 times. We played out in Vegas. We went to Chicago. We went to, I started naming all the different places that the teams we played, and I always looked to play the best. And I always used to tell the kids, if you don't play the best, you're never going to be, I said, don't get me wrong. I said, there's probably 5 or 6 schools like Rockhurst in the state of Missouri and around Kansas City. I said, this is a big country, and there's a lot of great football players, a lot of great programs around the country, and who are you going to compare yourself to? And you would have kids, well, Coach, I think I could get to college. No, look, and I can recruit a 6'2". I was always honest with the kids, but I said, doesn't mean you can't play against them. Doesn't mean you can't compete with them. So we always looked to play the best, and I always thought it really paid dividends when we got into playoff time.
Did you feel like you almost had to do that? Because you, during the course of a season, would have quite a few pretty easy goes of it in games.
Well, you had to do it as we really got good, and things changed probably around the mid-'80s, and people just wouldn't play, and we were always an independent, so we weren't in a league.
Right.
And Rockhurst isn't in a league, so you got to go out hunting games. And like I said, I talk to Kelly Donahoe probably once or twice a week, and he's finding that out. If you got, we were lucky enough to get Blue Springs and Blue Springs South on a regular schedule, but there were times they were only in-town games,
Right.
And then as those schools started getting better, and they would find out, look, if you don't, eventually, if you're going to get in the playoffs, you're going to have to play a team like Rockers. So then they start scheduling us, and everybody's program. Kansas City football is really getting pretty good. I'm telling you that right now. There's a lot of good players and a lot of good kids and a lot of excellent coaches on both sides of the state. And you'd like to think as they were going, I know Tom Cruise over at Raymond Peculiar said the same thing, and he started to schedule us. And they all started to use that philosophy that I had for the day I took over coaching. That, you know, if you want to be the best, you got to compete against the best and play at a high level. You know, and kids understand that. Then they practice at a high level. They prepare, you know, in the off season at a high level. They know what they're facing. You know, so it was always I've never shied away. I mean, we went down to played in Louisiana, and then we played the next week in Dallas, and it was, I don't know if I could do it today at my age, but back then, being 10, 12 hours on a bus, getting off and playing a game. And, you know, we very seldom stayed overnight.
Wow. Did you, how much through the years did it bother you, if any, that the perception was out there that Rockhurst had advantages, that they quote unquote recruited, things like that? I mean, it was a sort of a standard issue type of thing that people would say. Did that bother you?
Well, here's what I always tell people, and I go, you can ask anybody this. In all my years, I never have talked to a kid in playing football. I never recruited a kid in my life. Every once in a while, you might have a kid in your hallway that you looked at, and somebody. I literally had parents would say, "Hey, I'd really like to talk to my son about playing football." And now, you know, I would get letters and emails. You need to come and watch my son play. I go, I don't do that. So they want to go to school at Rockers. They have to take the entrance exam. They have to recruit. Now, I always made a joke about it. But I swear, you know, and I tell people, you will never find anybody that will ever tell you that I asked them to play football, to come to Rockhurst and play football. We never did. I never did. I never would. And obviously I never will anymore. But even in the school. In fact, there were times even my sons would say, "Dad, you know, all these schools are out recruiting these guys." And look, if they want to come and play, they'll be here. You know, I always had a little youth football camp in the summer, and kids would come. And I remember when Nathan Shieldhouse came, these kids were coming there 8, 9 years old, saying, and his mom would tell the story. He said that Coach Severino talked to you about coming to Rockhurst. And he said that the last day in his 8th grade year, he'd say, "No, he never mentioned me coming here at all." And, you know, the school sells itself. The education sells itself. I always tell people, if I've got to talk a kid into playing, eventually I'm going to have to pay him to play. You know, and it's I just never believed in that. I always used to make a joke when I talk at clinics, because you're right. The perception was, yeah, we recruited these kids. And I always tell people, there is not one kid that will ever tell you that I talked to them into coming to Rockhurst to play football. Never. And I remember, but I'd always, when I talked to clinics, and I said, I know the perception is I recruit. But, you know, I don't recruit. So they have to take an entrance exam. I said, no, I do have a cardboard cutout at the door. And it says, if you are taller than this cutout, turn and take the test to the left. If you're not, take the test to the right. And I go, if you can get down to the test on the right under 5 seconds, turn back around and take the test to the left. So, and they would all look around going, I knew it. I said, guys, it's just a joke.
Right. Absolutely. One of your goals through the years when you talked about it was having, if you had sons, that they would go to Rockhurst. And I think in some of the stuff I've read, part of the reason that you turned away opportunities potentially to leave Rockhurst is because you wanted to coach your sons.